Welcome to another episode of Crown Jewels, a journey through Queen. I am your host, PLD, from the PLD Projects Network. I hope you are all doing well. It is an exciting time for Queen fans. The Miracle box set is coming out soon. Just a few short weeks now, we'll get some unheard tracks, and eventually we'll get there on this program even. But we're not quite there yet. We are on Queen 2 still, so a little bit further away than the Miracle. 1974 to 1989, we still have a long journey ahead of us. But what are we doing here? If you're new to the channel, new to this particular podcast, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave some comments later on. Let me know what you think about it. And if you like it, tell your friends. And if you don't like it, just don't say anything. Why would you do that? Why would you spread bad feelings, right? But what do we do on this network, on this particular podcast, Crown Jewels? Well, this is a podcast about the greatest rock and roll band in history, according to me. You know, your miles may vary, but for me, there's none higher than Queen. Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Roger Taylor, John Deacon. We are going through their entire catalog, song by song, including solo projects, some B-sides, demos, things of that nature. And as Queen is wont to do, they have alternate versions of a lot of different songs. So we're going to pick the crown jewel of each song so that we can create the Ultimate Queen playlists. And that's right, playlists. In the description, you'll find a link to a Google Doc which dictates all about the different playlists we are creating. And we also provide links to YouTube versions of the songs that you can listen along. We can pause the podcast, listen to the song, listen to the version of the song, come back, and I'll talk all about it. That's what we do here. It's a lot of fun, I feel. I love it. So let's get right into it. This week's episode, Funny How Love Is. It is the 10th track on Queen 2, getting close to the end of Side Black. You've been following all along. You know, that's Queen 2 is divided up into Side White, written by Brian May, and one Roger Taylor song, and Side Black, all written by Freddie in a very Beatles-like medley way. Songs going from one into another, with very little time or anything else in between. So it's hard to distinguish. It's almost like a big medley. We are nearing the end of that, and this song is indeed written by Freddie Mercury. It features Freddie on lead vocals, backing vocals, piano. Brian on both acoustic and electric guitars, also provides some backing vocals. John's on the bass. Roger Taylor is on drums and backing vocals. So what about this song? Well, if you remember earlier on in the podcast, we covered a song called I Can Hear Music, backed by Going Back. It was the first single released by an artist called Larry Lurex, who basically was Freddie Mercury. Robin Jeffrey Cable was a producer that was working at the studios when Queen was recording, and he was trying to create a Phil Spector wall of sound, and that's why he hired Freddie to sing it, and Freddie wanted Brian and Roger to play on it as well if they were going to do it, right? One for all for one kind of thing, as much as we could. Well, this is kind of a continuation of that in a way. The band wanted to create their own Phil Spector wall of sound feel for this track, and they do so with the help of Robin Jeffrey Cable. Now, this track is kind of the end of the medley of Side Black. It segues abruptly in from March of the Black Queen, but does fade out on its own before the final song on the album, Seven Seas of Rhye, comes in. Now, this song was also never performed live, as far as I know. I have to put that caveat on it, because we thought for a long time the Fairy Feller's Masterstroke was never performed live. We have no recordings that exist as far as we can tell, so I'm pretty safe to say that at least to our knowledge, it has never been performed live. Quickly, let's go over some of those alternative release versions of the song and some unreleased versions that we'll take a quick listen to. The alternative release versions are going to be a little bit different this time. For example, we have 3 digital master sampler edit, Japanese single version, the UK CD single version. We're going to listen to one version of them, and I'll talk about the others, if only because all 3 of them are similar in that they are not really remixes. They're not really anything different, especially different about them, except for they all kind of try to create a standalone version, the best standalone version. So I'll just tell you which is the best of those, and we'll go from there. I will also say there are some unreleased versions that we have, some demos that we have. Again, those great Greg Brooks voiceovered property of Queen Productions. We'll cover takes 3 through 5 from a Queen convention. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't heard me before, Queen archivist Greg Brooks would come to the Queen conventions, fan club conventions, and they would get permission to play some demos, alternate takes, earlier versions, things of that nature. But unfortunately, to keep people from stealing it, like they pretty much did, he'd put the voiceover over it. So it's never very great sound wise. It's usually just somebody tape recording it. So it will never even be ranked by me because it's never going to hit the crown jewel of it. The unreleased version that we have not heard specifically at all, that I have not heard anyway, is Greg Brooks also played Take 1 and 2, but I don't have a copy of that. Finally, the unknown version, there's a thing called the original First Press cassette tape mix that Queen scholar John S. Stewart, the late great John S. Stewart, had mentioned in some of his notes. I never really heard anything about it. I never really saw anything more than that. I don't know if this is what it necessarily is, but I have no reason to doubt that it exists because John Stewart was a great collector of Queen and had quite many rarities and acetates and things of that nature. And of course, like I said, no officially released live versions. So, without further ado, go into that description. We're going to click on the studio version, the original studio version. Let's listen to that and come back and talk about it. Well, there you have it, folks. Funny how love is. How'd you feel about that one? That wall of sound just hits you right from the get-go and does not let up. It is present the entire song. There's no genre shifting here. It's all pretty much a big boom of sound from the loud percussiveness, the piano being extremely strong, especially in the left part of the headphone mix. Almost to the point where Freddie's voice is almost covered a little bit during it. Something that Freddie usually just pierces through the instrumentation. He's a little bit covered in this one, which is kind of surprising to a degree. I do want to note John's bass work being exquisite throughout, a lot of movement. He's never one to play just a simple note. He's never going to be just a thud, thud, thud player. He really kind of moves with it, adds his own little counter melodies at time. The only thing I ever wish about John's playing, I wish that it would come out more. Sometimes his work gets buried a little bit too. Sometimes I've heard more when I listen to the multi-tracks. You hear a little more of John's bass by itself. Really, man, the guy added so much to it. Just wish he could have amped it up a little bit as far as volume-wise. We do get the typical Queen harmonies that come in and out because of Freddie playing some back and forth with his own voice here and there in different tracks. It's great. No guitar solo on this track, so about a minute or so in, Brian does start putting some wandering guitar work that begins to cover the piano just to add that guitar bit. All very tasteful. In the left side of the headphones as well, but it's not very loud. It adds another layer to it, really. And at the end of the track, before they figure it out, Freddie starts changing the melody piece a little bit, keeps it interesting as he's wanting to do. You never really want to sing it the same way twice. You want to throw a different note out there, throw a different jump in there. It's very kind of cool. Then it kind of fades out before the end. Great track, though. Good track. Let's before we go any further, let's just stop there, and then we'll go listen to the alternate versions. Of course, with the singles, the UKC 3-inch CD single version, the Japan 3-inch CD single version, the digital masters sampler are all going to be in one. I'm going to tell you, I have links for 2 out of the 3. The UK CD single, I couldn't find anything on YouTube. But you have the Japan version and the digital master sampler version. Listen to both if you want. But if you want to listen to only one that's really important and the one that'd be the crown jewel of those 3, it would be the Japan 3-inch CD single version. And so listen to that. We'll come back and I'll talk about the differences and go from there. All right, welcome back from that. The first thing before we discuss anything, I should say something that I probably should have said earlier. I'm talking about 3-inch singles, yada yada yada, and you're probably like, "What? You never mentioned in your description that this was a single." It wasn't a single. It wasn't actually even a B-side of any Queen 2 single, but it did happen to be on this very special collection they did in 1988, both in the UK and Japan. Had these little 3-inch CD single collections. And instead of just recreating the singles as they were, maybe because they're on CD or maybe for bonus tracks, a lot of time these 3-inch CD singles would add extra tracks from the same album that it was on. So the UK version added Funny How Love Is to the 7 Seas of Rhye single, and also the Japan version did the same. The Japan version of the collection did the same thing. However, they were quite different. I'll tell you first, the UK single, the one that he couldn't listen to, there's no YouTube version of it, is actually even more of a mastering error than anything else. Honestly, it begins with an outro from the March of the Black Queen. The whole ending piano part where the March of the Black Queen ended with the slow part and the piano dun 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 dun. Don't forget your sing along and your lullabies. That part is all part of this song in this UK single version, and the rest of it goes as normal. The difference is now for the digital sampler edit. It was a good edit. It does fade in with the last few vocal chords, a very few and then into the piano percussion opening. The track does end with a fade out. It's a very good single version. The reason why I chose the Japan CD version for you to listen to, though, is if you're looking for a true standalone version of the song, standalone mix of the song, it's this one right here, the Japan 3-inch CD version. It starts just with that first percussive downbeat and the piano. Boom, bum, 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 bum. And it ends kind of similar to the digital master sampler version, another fade out. So those are the differences between those three. Again, there's small differences. The rest of the song is the same. So I didn't want to go through them pour over each one individually when they're that close. So that's the crown jewel version of the singles, the Japan 3-inch CD singles. So let's move on now to our last listening party of the night. We're listening to the Funny How Love Is takes 3 through 5, the convention recordings. Let's see how that goes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Property of Queen Productions.
Well, there you are with the convention versions, take 3 through 5. Again, it's not something I put on very often, obviously. It is interesting to hear, though. If you listen at the end, Greg actually talks about takes 1 and 2 that we do not hear. I did not hear, unfortunately, about Freddie thinking the first was too fast and then the second was too slow. But takes 3 through 5 were very cool. You get to hear a little bit of Freddie background, a little Freddie counting things in. It's strictly a piano, bass, and drums version of it. You get to hear a couple of mistakes, but finally, take 5, you get a pretty complete, pretty faithful instrumental version of it, albeit without all the bells and whistles of the final production. Well, that's it. There we are. We listened to all the versions that we're going to listen to today. It's time to get on to the ranking and to the crown jewels itself. Well, we have 4 versions to rank, even though we only listened to 3. We're not going to rank the convention versions. They're never going to be ranked anymore. I've decided it's a waste because I'm never going to rank them. They're always going to be last. Let's put it that way. So it's the album version versus the Japanese single, digital master sampler edit, UK CD single. And since, like I said, the Japanese single version, the digital sampler version, the UK CD single version, we're all fighting for one spot. I will say that the single versions do come in second because I don't need a standalone version. Obviously, it's the same track throughout, and since I'm using the album version for the March of Black Queen, I'm just going to go right into the album version of Funny How Love Is. It'll be like it's intended, the medley version. In fact, the whole side to black version so far, except for Ogre Battle Beginning, from the Fairy Feller's Masterstroke on, Through Nevermore to March of the Black Queen, and Funny How Love It will all be the album version. So it's going to be a nice medley as Queen intended, as the Beatles did before them. Otherwise, ranking the singles, I'm going to put the UK CD single version last. Just a mastering error. It's kind of interesting having March of the Black Queen, but it seems like it'd be really weird to hear March of the Black Queen and then hear March of the Black Queen again before you hear the song. I'll put the digital master sampler edit second, and again the Japanese CD single version up top of that little tier because the Japanese CD single version is the best complete standalone version. If I had chosen the standalone version for March of the Black Queen that's on Deep Cuts Volume 1, then I would have chosen the Japanese CD single version for the one here. But we didn't with the album version, therefore that's where we are. So what do we rank the song? What do I rate the song? On a scale of 1 to 11, because we always go to 11 here on PLD Projects. This album's been a big doozy for me, obviously. A lot of high scores here. This is where it does fall down a little bit for me. This is definitely my least favorite song on side 2, on side black, because it's more about the production than it really is the musicality. really than, well, the musicality's there, but it's more about the production than anything else. It's kind of a samey song. There's not a whole lot of movement to it. It doesn't really take you on a journey anywhere. It kind of starts where it ends. The band does a good job of kind of altering things here and there to try to keep it interesting. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to listen to something on Queen 2, there's a lot more tracks I'm going to pick before I pick Funny How Love Is. I'm more likely to pick it if I'm just listening to the March of the Black Queen, just kind of let it go through because it connects together so well. That's why I listen to it, but listening to it on its own, not something I would choose to do very often. So at the end of the day, I think I'm going to give this a 6.5. 6.5 out of 11. Still a great track. I can't fault it for the musicality that is there. I can't fault it for what they're doing with the production. It's a great production. So at the end of the day, I can only say it's not personally one of my favorites. So that's why it gets knocked out a few points, but not in anywhere near like the lower dregs or anything like that. But that will tell you right there, it is not going to fit into my top 10, because my top 10 are all higher at this point. So Funny How Love Is will not enter the charts, the PLD charts. It's going to fall without a trace. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you again for sticking with me. Thanks for coming back, listening to Crown Jewels talk about Funny How Love Is. Next week, come back because it's a big song. It's a big song on the catalog. We're finally starting to hit those songs. Even the more casual Queen fans will be listening to songs they do know. They can hear different versions of songs they do know. I love Queen 1, I love Queen 2, but obviously speaking, not a lot of greatest hits, not a lot of singles off them that are memorable to the casual fan. But of course, for the deep dive fans, I'll have some of those as well. 7 Seas of Rhye does have quite a few alternate versions here and there, some interesting live takes, etc. So stay tuned for that. And if you want, join me on PLD Projects Patreon, patreon.com/PLD Projects. I have a small dedicated force. I want to shout out a few of them specifically. Danielle Ramirez, Brandon Buckingham, Brady Parker, Jeff Alterman, John Latrina, and Kelly W., and all the rest of you. I could not do it without you. You help me keep the lights on. We've changed some benefits, actually, that's going to affect this show specifically. Initially on the Patreon, I had offered a listening party kind of thing where we can get together, listen to the Queen songs, and talk about them. But I'm finding that with the hangouts we're doing, they tend to be more just conversation. We don't want to go and listen to something. We want to talk about what we want to talk about, hang out, and do all things like that. So instead, thanks to John Lastrina, Patreon John Lastrina, we are going to try something different. We're going to have guests on this podcast. I'm going to have not be like a guest because it's kind of a weird place we were talking about. I was trying to figure out how to do it. This is a very much a solo show where I'm just kind of talking to you about different things that I know and instructing you on what I'm hearing and things of that nature. Not a lot of give or take, really. So I try to figure out how I wanted to do it. I think I came up with a solution. I think I'm going to have, when I do have a guest on, I'm going to have a Patreon segment. I don't know what the name of it is yet, where I'm going to have a conversation with a patron like John Lastrina, my friend, a good friend, loves the music, loves Queen. We're going to have I'll insert it into the episode. It'll be a small conversation where we talk about whatever song is the subject of the episode for that week. So that should be very interesting indeed. As you've noticed, we've been uploading all of the stuff on the PLD Project YouTube channel now. Episodes of Crown Jewels will be on the YouTube channel and vice versa, Class Action. The show on the YouTube channel where we debate two different things in the movie universe, actor versus actor, film versus film, franchise versus franchise, and we put them up against each other with some custom-made categories and determine who is the winner. That's going to go back up on the Spotify and playlist podcast feeds as well. And also, finally, 2 mediocre white dudes on film. Myself and PJ Campbell. We took a little bit of break after finishing the Halloween saga. Next up, we'll be doing The Shining and Doctor Sleep as a two-parter for patron Danielle Ramirez. Before we continue on to the next franchise, which I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, but they're also going to be on YouTube well as a visual video. So lots of things going on in PLD Projects. I hope you enjoyed yourself here. I hope you enjoyed yourself enough to subscribe, like, leave comments, get a hold of me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. Yell at me. I'm all good. But until next time, folks, God save the Queen. Keep rocking, everybody.